everybody. My name is John Thompson. I'm the president of SAGA Wisdom. We're a purveyor of digital education and training for the oil and gas industry. We provide technical science training through an online platform that we've custom built. For more information, please contact us. Thank you for joining us for today's technical webinar. We've got a whole bunch of new tech and new tools, new methods to show you over the course of this webinar series, which is a 2-day series starting this Friday for 2 hours and next Friday as well. If you like what you hear on this session, I encourage you to sign in for next week's session, and we'll have 6 more vendors lined up to show you some of the emerging tech in drilling, completions, production, reservoir, and reserves. With that, I will start with introducing our first speaker. Our first speaker is Christopher Thompson. He's the founder and CEO of Geonomic Tech. He is the president and operating geologist of Geonomic Technologies. They're a technology company that focuses on the acquisition and integration of geological drilling and completions data for clients, primarily those clients that are operating in deep basin plays, like in the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin. He's also the inventor of the Geonomic Paragon tool, which is an advanced logging while tripping application. Chris completed his geoscience at the University of British Columbia in 2010, and he's a practicing member of APEGA. He's also a member of the CSPG, and he sits on the board of Well Abandonment and Integration Society.
Hello everybody, I'm Chris Thompson.
Hello everybody, I'm Chris Thompson. This is why open hole data matters. In fact, there's a 6-pack right there for you. So let's look at cemented hole completion segment. First and foremost, open hole geometry. When we look at caliper data, it shows us the rugosity of the borehole. Here you can see this is 6 1/8 inch bit track. This is maximum diameter, minimum diameter. When they meet, that's concentric. But here you can see we're meeting thresholds that are far greater than the bit. This is all wells. So typically are all 3/4 inch washout to some degree or another. This is what the industry is modeling off of. This concentric borehole is extremely rare. And high frequencies when we tend to see the borehole open up to this type of diameter. Now, why is this problem? Well, it is a problem for cement because it's your primary isolation mechanism. It's also your anti-corrosion jacket, plus it's also your frac stage isolation mechanism. When you have centralized casing, you get good cement coverage. When you don't, you have poor cement coverage and your compressive strength drops. And in areas like this, you tend to have zero frac stage isolation. So decentralized casing is very problematic for cement. Let's look at this area here. When your max and min diameters start to separate, you get small amounts of ovality. And I'll show you why this is problematic. Even in this area, which isn't that bad, if you don't have it centralized, you actually get bad cement coverage. Again, if cement is your isolation for your frac stage and you don't have any, then you have no frac stage isolation. So that's a warning. Here's what a perfect cement job actually looks like in the simulation. Thanks to Team UBC at Fluid Mechanics Lab, you can see how the cement sweeps in underneath. That's how cement is supposed to set up inside your wellbore. More often it doesn't. And that's actually a bigger problem when you get this type of ovality. This is extreme borehole breakout and shear stress in this 20-meter section. If you have open hole ovality, you're going to see casing ovality. So this is a frac stage isolation warning right here with this data. Again, if we have ovality, we've seen it in our casing. Less than 2% ovality with casing wall loss means that your plugs are going to fail. Also, we are seeing accelerated corrosion on our casing, where you don't have cement and perf zones. This is accelerating casing deformation, loss in production. All completions equipment is designed for concentric borehole. This is true whether it's cemented or open hole. So green is a go. If replacing plugs, they need to go into concentric borehole because that's where your casing needs to be concentric. Plus our centralizers also need to be set up in concentric borehole to get this casing off the ground so we can get cement in underneath. Pardon me, cement in underneath. So red is no go, green is a go. If we do not get proper frac stage isolation, we end up with frac sand in neighboring wells. And this one, we drilled through it. There's a 180-meter section where we were picking frac sand out and fluids invaded our mud system. So this is what happens if you have a bad cement job, you get bad frac stage isolation, you get bad production. So the problem is what we think we're getting and what we actually get are 2 very different results. And the problem is our actuals are exceeding the law of diminishing returns and that we're actually wasting a significant amount of money. So the open hole data actually tells us what we're supposed to do in our completion assembly. If we don't, we could waste up to $400,000 and that's not helping our production or profit. So round peg and square hole does not work. The same is for the open hole completion segment. Here we're looking at the 1/2 inch threshold. That's our tolerance for packers. They typically don't go bigger than that. So anything above a 1/2 inch is problematic to place a packer in. Again, the packer element is designed for concentric round borehole. That's where they make the seal. Red is a no-go, green is a go, or else we end up with bypass. Completions equipment is designed for concentric borehole. If we don't get it, we get frac fluid bypass. You can see all these stages are bleeding into each other. That means we're getting a drop in stimulated rock volume, and we're getting inter-wellbore communication or even interstage communication. Here we're seeing frac stages set up on about 60% of the wellbore. Well, it's even more problematic when you got geomechanical activity. Here you can see it dropping down and collapsing to about a 1/2 inch. That's why you pick it up in this multicolored mesh. These fractures are actually identified on the image log. So in fact, by caliper logging, you understand what's going on. Repeat passes tell us time-dependent changes. This is extremely important for us to understand how these wells are moving and setting up and collapsing in on us real time. If we don't look at what the rock is telling us, we are jeopardizing our completion. So can you smell what the rock is cooking? I hope so, because the rock geometry actually tells you what the open hole completion is supposed to look like. If we don't listen to what the rock is cooking, we just stand to waste a bunch of money, and on this one, $380,000. So we proved at a land asset on 20 wells that we could improve production 1.1 to 1.5 times per stage by simply placing the packer in concentric wellbore. That's the reality. So what's available? We use this on 20 wells. We were able to get our production up. However, separate operations. This is through bit, still requires a separate operation. Deployed that on 16 wells. I think probably 70 more in Canada. The problem is now you got to spend $50,000 for this data on a 1,700 meter lateral, but that doesn't include your rig services or rental costs. The other problem is it's extremely risky. So this wellbore being open for a long period of time is not what the drillers and completion engineers want. So to pay standby and other services is not what's happening these days. We're not logging. But what happens is if we don't get the information, we're setting ourselves up for an enormous amount of unwarranted risk. So here's our solution. Geonomic Paragon technology is on the bottom hole assembly while you're drilling, so that we can pretty much pick up the mail on the way home. And here's how this works. When we're running our section, our wellbore section, we initiate trip mode. Our arms come out. Now we're actually mechanically contouring inside this wellbore, plus thermal logging it. We have convex contact pads that make a proper contact with the inside of the wellbore for actual mechanical measurements. So of course, evaluating the open borehole is how we can place completions assembly in the right spot. Here I'm showing you a 2D simulation of tripping. You can see it's in feet. You can change the meters, but really you see all the diameter change quite frequently and quite rapidly. Here's our 3D wellbore. If you fly through, what you'd see is in the red is that's 3/4 of an inch out of gauge, and in the yellow, that's a 1/2 inch out of gauge. Everything that's in green is a go. It's concentric. So red is a no-go, green is a go. This is the 20-meter wellbore section that I was showing you that had some borehole breakout and shear stress. So you can see how the wellbore is actually squashed from the side here when you fly through the 3D wellbore. So this is important for us to understand when we're analyzing 3D data. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much.
With that, we're going to transition to our next speaker. And so I'm pleased to present to you our next presenter from AquaSmart Enterprises. This is Jared Blung, the president and COO of AquaSmart. Jared is a seasoned bootstrapping entrepreneur and an energy executive with a successful operational and financial track record, including back-to-back listings on the Inc. 5000's top 1,000 in 2018 and 2019. He also led a successful asset sale in 2020, generating triple-digit returns on invested capital by fostering a people-driven culture of human flourishing and operational excellence through relentless problem-solving. Jared's skilled at devising and executing strategies to improve capital deployment to efficiently drive increased stakeholder value.
Hi there. My name is Jared Blung, President and COO of AquaSmart. I wanted to personally thank you for having the interest in our very disruptive technology and for taking the time to learn more about how you can use it as a tool to facilitate repeatable, profitable results for you and your team, your wells, and more broadly, your asset development programs. Now, the big problem we're trying to solve as an industry is how do we economically make a better well? Not necessarily who has the best AFEs, but really who has the best ROIs? How? For years as an industry, we've been trying to drain rock more efficiently and effectively, and we've known that an effective tool in the toolkit is thin fluid at higher rates and lower pressures, which ultimately enhances frac dimensions and complexity. But we've always been hindered by the proppant itself, because it inherently doesn't travel where we want it to, and it really doesn't carry itself. So, as an industry, we've been treating the fluid systems to ultimately facilitate the transport of proppant, rather than dealing with the proppant itself. Well, our team at AquaSmart felt like if we focused on the proppant itself and the job of maintaining conductivity it needs to do, and we ultimately allowed the thin fluid to do the work of fracturing it does best, that would prove to be a winning recipe, both mechanically and economically. So let's start with the end in mind and work from there. Our first case study looks back more than 2 years to a very tidy 3-pad head-to-head trial run by a prominent Permian operator. As you can see, all 3 pads were parent wells, and we targeted the Lower Sprayberry, the Wolfcamp A, and the Wolfcamp B. For the first 60 or so days, the 3 trial pads were all producing very similarly and competing well head-to-head. But really at day 100, the ProProp pad really started to shine. This culminated with 600 plus day data showing that our pad performed significantly better with very similar designs. In addition to the oil uplift, we also saw strong uplift in gas production, demonstrating that ProProp was in fact mobilizing more hydrocarbons. So what facilitates those results? In both of these videos, we ran a flow loop test at the same GPM and proppant loading. On the left, we can see the flow of proppant in 1 gallon per thousand of HVFR slick water. On the right is the same proppant loading of ProProp. The slick water job relies on turbulent flow to push the proppant through the casing, in the lateral, and out the perfs. However, the turbulent flow ceases outside the perforations, and the proppant settles immediately, causing a dune. The properties of ProProp aid in the transport of proppant in the casing as well as out in the reservoir. And you can see the fluid remains in laminar flow, which allows it to travel deeper into the fracture network without the duning effect. So how does this work exactly? Well, many of us have dealt with some iteration of coated proppants over the years, like resin, but very few have dealt with non-permanent ones. Our one-of-a-kind FR-coated proppant is simple, effective, and non-toxic. As ProProp hits the blender, you'll see here in the chart going from A to B to C, it immediately hydrates, creating a temporary halo or parachuting effect, allowing it to transport more easily and cleanly down the wellbore and into the reservoir. This facilitates the proppant's ability to go where the water goes. Once in place in the fractures, it breaks cleanly, leaving virtually zero residue behind and minimizing any reservoir damage. We worked with a well-known independent lab, Prop Tester, and they confirmed that cleanliness with the regained conductivity data on the right. In 2015, a study was done in conjunction with Shell, which ultimately culminated in the SPE paper notated at the top here. From that study, on emerging tech and fracking of unconventionals, we confirmed our original thesis of improved transportability and long-term frac efficacy. In fact, if you pay close attention to the fracture shapes shown here and on the next slide in Shell's simulation and model findings, they precisely mirror the actual shapes and findings of our independent slot test 4 years later that are shown below and on the next slide. The experiment and photo on the bottom shows what happens with traditional HVFRs when uncoated proppant is pumped. Notice the distribution across the slot test, or fracture length if you will. The sand creates a dune, and the sand falls from the perforation depths to the bottom of the frac and builds up to the perforation depth, and then becomes a dune that flocculates, creating a real specific geometry. Potential screenouts can occur when sand builds up so close to the perforations. In this second set of data from both Shell and Prop Tester, our ProProp product really performed well. Pay close attention to the fracture shapes or geometry shown here in Shell's ProProp simulation model and findings. Below the simulation is a lab picture from Prop Tester. An identical test was run from the last slide, but rather than using any HVFR, ProProp was added to the system. You no longer have the traditional duning effect. Notice the distribution across this slot test, or fracture length. The result is better transportation of the proppant, resulting in longer half lengths, more proppant in zone, and lower treating pressures. This means you'll be placing proppant significantly deeper into the fracture network and creating greater conductivity throughout the reservoir. Lastly, this could also help the pressure pumpers and operators with wear and tear on equipment, maintenance costs, and ultimately downtime. So how does that impact efficiency at the well site? When the first quarter of this year, we ran another trial on 8 wells in the north central Midland Basin. This particular stage is one of 2, where we wanted to see the effects of rate as it relates to pressure. We were certainly encouraged to see that as we increased both rate and loading with ProProp and 0 FR in the slurry, that we comfortably walked up to 120 barrels per minute and maintained a controlled treating pressure environment. What's more interesting is the pressure drop on the backside of ramping the rate. It was certainly greater than 1-for-1, which we typically see in the frac van on a slick water job. During the same 8-well trial, we consistently saw the pressure dropping behaviors stage after stage. In fact, in one stage where we had been riding the 9,000-pound treating line, we saw a 2,000-pound pressure drop once ProProp was introduced into the fluid system. Throughout the 8-well trial, we consistently saw drops of 1,200 to 1,800 pounds depending on which formation we were in. This last data slide was another stage from a trial in the fourth quarter of last year where the operator intentionally pushed the product to its limits as it relates to proppant loading and tried to screen out. We actually surpassed the capacity of our screws of the blender from a prop density perspective at 5.5 pounds per gallon. This allowed us to complete the stage in 42 minutes because we put the dirt away so quickly. In fact, in over 2,000 stages, we've yet to screen out with ProProp in the slurry. We also felt it was critical to embrace the mindset of being globally in basin. Our mobile coating process allows ProProp to be neatly and efficiently inserted into your current supply chain, keeping costs low and mitigating the bottlenecks that have plagued the proppant coating business for many years. This strategy allows us to scale quickly with demand and keep your costs low. In fact, in the third quarter of this year, we entered into an agreement with Black Mountain Sand in the first of hopefully several in-basin sand mine partnerships. In addition to efficiencies, we've seen ProProp be a catalyst in environmental stewardship, enabling companies to thrive in their ESG initiatives, which allow our industry continued access to capital and a social license to operate. The efficiency and efficacy of proppant transport enables operators to use fresh or produced water, or just simply less water if that's your philosophical proclivity. The same efficiency also reduces treating pressures, which we looked at in our case studies. This further facilitates a horsepower reduction or the option to increase fluid rates that ultimately reduce your on-site frac emissions, not to mention time on well. And lastly, because we're using 100% active ingredient and not reservoir harming emulsions or carriers, we have consistently seen up to 90% decreases in liquid FR consumption. Being mindful, though, that some FR mechanism still needs to be utilized in both your pad and flush. So what does this mean for us and all of you? Well, for you, it means lower break-evens, better ROIs, and continued access to capital you need to continue to do your great work with excellence. For us, it means we can provide a tool for you to economically access more hydrocarbons from your assets on a well-by-well, pad-by-pad basis. It means together we can create environments for people and countries to thrive by unlocking plentiful, reliable, and affordable energy together. And lastly, it means we can continue to steward the resources we've been entrusted to the benefit of all mankind. Please don't hesitate to reach out to one of the folks on our team with any questions, feedback, or even further research you might need to undertake so we can get busy unlocking energy together. thanks again for your interest in ProProp and for allowing us to share with you today.
Well, that wraps it up. I appreciate the time and appreciate everybody's questions. And it's nice that Mazur ends it off because we are transitioning to Shear Frac Group for the next presentation. And their newly appointed CEO, Tom Johnson, is going to be giving the presentation today. Tom started thinking about how unconventional rocks fail in high school and went on to gain an MS Geology from Penn State University, focusing on geomechanics and reservoir engineering. Tom honed his passion for unconventional reservoir development at Noble Energy in the Marcellus, Eagle Ford, and Permian basins. His last position at Noble Energy was as a development and operations geologist before joining Shear Frac. And with that, Darcy, can you launch it?
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to my talk. I'm very happy to be here, and we, Shear Frac, are very excited to show you what it is that we do and how we do it, specifically for this technical community. So my name's Thomas Johnston. I'm the CEO and a co-founder of Shear Frac. Obviously, I'm not from the United States or North America. I came over here for grad school. I did grad school up at Penn State University in 2010. And there I met another co-founder, Wes Johnson, and together he and I worked at Noble Energy in the unconventional world and looking at advancing unconventional development. And so Shear Frac was born out of that partnership, and it was founded at the beginning of 2019 to link the geosciences, which is my background, and the reservoir engineering, which is the proof and the production, to the completion engineers where everything's happening. We do that by measuring fracture surface area created in real time. So today I'll show you a little bit about how measuring fractures in real time allows the frac consultants in the field to make small changes during completion operations to maximize fracture surface area and well productivity. So why Shear Frac? Well, our technology helps guide completions to improve shear fractures, which improves fracture surface area, which ultimately improves production. So completion design drives production. Just like you have a design plan before you get to the field, you should also be prepared to make design changes in the field based on how your frac is responding to your plan. So when you measure the fracture surface area you're creating, that's a direct rock response, and you can make small tweaks to your plan to optimize each stage for productivity. Dave Anderson used this simple equation in his talk with NSI last month. He pointed out that flow, Q, of oil and gas out of a well is dominated by that A. And so that is exactly what we're measuring. And our ethos is the frac consultant should be charged with increasing A, not just safely disposing sand and water. He or she can do that by using a real-time measurement of how the rock is breaking, improving shear fracturing, which is improving that A, fracture surface area, which will lead to improved production. Well, some of the problems we tried to solve, as you'll see, we start with a typical recipe and react to measurements and refine each stage. This technology is extremely cost effective. We're just using the data that's already been produced. And while other technologies, microseismic, fiber optics, they're super valuable, but they're just not realistic to have on every single well. And then, as I said, we encourage consultants to change from this sand disposal mindset to one of creating maximum A, maximum fracture surface area. And hence, they're making every stage the best they possibly can be. We do this by streaming the frac data straight to the cloud, and the cloud in AWS makes that calculated measurement and returns it back to the field within 20 seconds. That allows the consultant to try little things and observe the effect of those little changes. So FracBrain is our real-time guidance platform and measures fractures. This is born out of an experiment we did in the Marcellus where we had a slant well with microseismic data and fiber optics. And Wes started to see that between the microseismic data and the moment tensor inversion of that, there were specific patterns that came out in this pressure data, in this pumping pressure data. So you can start to relate where the moment tensor says shear fracturing is happening. There's a certain pattern in pressure, and when it's tensile fracturing happening, it's another pattern in pressure. And then when the pumps are hammering away, when friction's hammering away, they all have different patterns, and you're able to pull that out of this pressure data with relation to rate and proppant concentration. And so then just a little bit about how we do it. We go to the field for 3 to 4 days, and we make sure that the pressure transducer is located in the correct place. This is our guys in the field working on that. We place a monitor right in front of the frac consultants. So they have all of their other measurements there, but they have this extra tool, basically, just to help them improve how they're fracturing. The brain then calculates the fractures based off this streaming of fracture data, and within 20 seconds, returns those results to the screen right in front. We could do this every second, but we found that every 20 seconds is more than real time enough to make a change and then observe how that change is happening in the rock. So just introduce the curves. Here's your normal pump curve. You've got pressure and you've got rate. And then this is downhole, bottom hole proppant concentration. So the added output we have are these extra curves. You can see that we have primarily shear fractures. This is the green grass, counting shear fracture intensity, and cumulative line here in purple. And then you have these purple graphs here. These are tensile fractures. So obviously here at the beginning of the stage, getting out of the perforations, there's your big tensile fractures. And then you have tensile fracturing happening throughout. And then the third curve you're looking at here is this black curve, which we call the block size curve. So when you're thinking about breaking down a rock, you've got to think three-dimensionally. So you're creating a fracture here, you're creating a fracture here. But you need to break that rock into a block. So the smaller you can get your block sizes, the higher your fracture density, the more A you're creating. So that's really what you're aiming to do, is get low block size, high shear fracture intensity. So here you can see the small changes. This is something that we encourage the consultant to see, and we'll go through it a little bit later. But these small changes in rate, once you're at the working proppant concentration, make big differences in the amount of fracture surface area you're creating per volume of fluid that you're pumping down there. It's all about optimizing that efficiency. So here you can see the measurement we've got is very different depending on the rock that you're in. So this is an example from the Midland Basin with a recent client that we worked with. They had some Joe Mill wells and they had some Wolfgang A wells, as well as other wells in between. And you can see this is something that we can do. We can go in and just measure. You don't have to make any changes. So here you can see measuring the finer sandstone, more permeable rock, fewer shear fractures, larger block size. So that means those fractures are further apart, which makes sense when you've got a larger bedded rock formation. And then when you get into the organic rich stuff, more shear fracturing is going on, lower block size. So that fractures are getting denser, and you're creating more and more of them in this finely laminated work. So this is why this is a measurement, and it's very difficult, well, in fact, impossible to compare a Wolfgang A well to a Joe Mill well, because a shear fracture, one single fracture, is not going to produce as much oil and gas in a Wolfgang A rock than it is in a Joe Mill well, because you've got that higher permeability formation. So it's really hard to compare. That's why you have to have wells in the same rock. Operators use these plots as a relative measurement from stage to stage. So you set your bar in the first stages and try and improve on top of that. And if you can grow that grass, increase the fracture surface area, you increase the well's productivity. And we don't want to shy away from correlating to stage level technology such as microseismic data, fiber, tracer data, things like that. But it's very, very hard when you're looking at production. You know, stages come on and turn off, and different things happen depending on where you landed. So the most important thing in our mind is that the technology, we can make improvements, and it correlates to production. So here is a 5-well pad in the Duvernay, and we show you shear fractures per meter cube along the x-axis. So how many fractures do you create per volume of rock? And then productivity index from rate transient analysis. And this client here gave us, we measured the whole 5-well pad, and we made improvements on 2 wells, well 1 and well 2. You can see that once you make improvements on the amount of fractures you create per surface area, per volume, the better productivity your well has. And we see this correlation again and again. Here's another example from the Eagle Ford. We're on every single one of these wells. And so shear fractures per barrel, now we're in the US, you increase the number of shear fractures per volume of fluid that you're putting in there. And these were put on immediately on gas lift. So we weren't able to do rate transient analysis. So just simple decline curve analysis, you can see that matches really nicely to total hydrocarbon. So if we're able to, last thing I forgot to tell you is this is 90 days worth of production. This is actually 6 months worth of production. So once you're improving a fracture surface area over that whole well, and you look at that production data through time, we're consistently correlating with that production. So I'll just take you through a first-time user experience. This is just a live application of technology. So here, this particular client were completing 2 3-well zippers, and they started by giving us the first zipper and said, hey, if you're able to prove that you're going to increase your operation efficiency, reduce the amount of fluid, we'll give you the next 3-well zipper. Well, so obviously we got both of those zippers. And that's really important. That scoping out the project at first is really important, because you need to prove the changes you are making and the difference at the end of productivity is due to those changes that you make. So first off, these measurements can be taken without any live changes. You can see here, this is a simple ramp up of 100 mesh, and then we've set 4070, ramp straight up to rate, large pressure spike. This is one of the earlier stages. But they can be extremely useful for us to observe how that specific well, how that specific formation is fracturing, and observe where we can find this balance of rate to create the fractures and proppant concentration to use as that far field diverter and divert the fluid to create more fractures. So observing that optimum balance in these early stages allows us to decide what steps we can make to change going forward. So one of the things that we found is no one can frac these wells better than the frac consultants that are already there. So we go to the field and we train the frac consultants, and they're already looking at pressure. They're already always watching it. And so the added insights you get from this technology help give those frac consultants the freedom to realize these small real-time changes best for fracturing. So the beginning of the stage here is very critical. They ramp a lot slower when they're looking at trying to maximize shear fracturing. And that allows you to control that initial tensile fracture, and that allows you then to stress the formation far better than if you created a large tensile fracture and just this big void behind. If you can focus on that breakdown, you can avoid these fracture-driven interactions, but also it allows you to create more fracture surface area closer to the wellbore. And finally here, a little bit later on, here's an optimized stage in this particular well. So we learned that we could ramp up a little quicker, and actually rate drops helped us, especially when the pressure was climbing like this. So you can see that every rate drop, the block size goes down. So that means we're increasing that fracture density, and the number of shear fractures created per second increases. And so that's everything we're trying to do here. Even they're making little step changes with high viscosity friction reducer. So every little knob you can turn just to maximize every single stage. That balance of rate to continuously create new fractures, followed by proppant to fill out those new fractures and divert the fluid to create more fracture surface area, maximizes the completion effectiveness. So the ultimate goal in every single stage has to be to maximize production. So everything should be done to improve the fracture count shear fractures here, which is improving fracture surface area. But in addition to that, we consistently observe these ancillary benefits of reducing the amount of fluid we use and hence reducing pump time. So on this particular example, the operator reduced fluid by more than 10% per stage, which then when you work out those calculations, saved up to $100,000 on this well. So those operational efficiencies come as a bonus. As well as this, I haven't got any images of it, but we're developing a real-time fracture-driven interaction feature. So it's a little warning in the corner that we then stream these offset well pressures. And as soon as those offset well pressures deviate from where they should be falling, it gives you a little warning. And so this is all part of this measurement, which just shows you, hey, look, this is how the rock is breaking. This is what's happening. You've hit this well over here. What are you going to do? Make a change. Make a change in rate. Make a change in proppant. Make a change in HVFR. So by integrating all these new tools, we can help identify how to make these on-the-fly changes and improve the productivity. And so you've seen this correlation already. That was that earlier correlation. Shear fractures per barrel increasing, total hydrocarbon for the well increasing. And this is a pad. This is part of the thing we're able to show the offsets. This is a shear frac pad, so 5 wells here, versus all the pads in the region over the first 90 days worth of production. So 17% improvement over the next best offset pad. But if you take all these as an average, 127% improvement. So the client was very, very happy with these wells, and we were immediately on the next pad with them. So all this shows you that an optimally fractured pad can outperform all the surrounding pads for the first 4 months and beyond. So I just want to show you a couple more case studies. We'll just focus on a Midland Basin operator. This operator uses us in every single one of their wells, and they have done for the last 2 years, because we're able to consistently show the value of using frac data to measure fracture surface area created per stage to make every stage the best it could possibly be. This company actually purchased 2 more companies this year, and so we're looking forward to working into those wells and those new acreages, taking the offsets from the previous pad and showing this company how much they can improve on those old companies' acreages. So here's our first one. We've got 3-year EUR here, cumulative oil. The first one I want to draw your attention to is the green and yellow laterals here. So the green lateral was completed using Shear Frac technology, using FracBrain. And the yellow lateral was completed using Shear Frac technology. Both of them are standalone wells. So we used that green as a baseline. We drew boxes around it to estimate fractured area and therefore highlight the potential recovery efficiency improvements from concentrating on shear fracturing. Comparison of the production data on the left shows the green well was very poorly stimulated, whereas the yellow well was optimally stimulated using FracBrain. And so we estimated to produce twice the amount of hydrocarbon over 3 years. So additionally, back on the right-hand side here again, we also completed a 3-well pad. So we're just looking at the Wolfgang B wells, but there is an A well in between here as well. And this was really interesting because you have a parent well that was 500 feet away or 1,500 feet away in that Wolfgang B. So if you look back at this production plot, each of these wells, the blue well and the red well, were optimally stimulated using FracBrain. You can see that 1,500 feet away from a parent well, there's a 20% hit on that 3-year EUR, and 500 feet away is a 40% hit on what that EUR. So, but even having said that, you can see that it outdoes that initially poorly stimulated standalone well. So all of this is just showing you that once you focus on a pad development world and even on a standalone world, if you can focus on optimally stimulating near wellbore, you'll make every stage the best it can possibly be as far as fracture surface area generation. So these are numbers. I won't spend a lot of time, but we also have a very strong reservoir engineering team that analyzes the first 3 months of production data for every single client. And we follow up long term with them. We're not just a technology, here you go and we're done. We're absolutely get involved with the company. And if we just look at that standalone comparison as well, we give a value in how much value we created over those first 3 years. So one last little one, and then I'll be done. Same operator, different county. So here, these wells are much better producing wells, and we've got high and proppant loading per foot. The 6 North well was completed pre-Shear Frac technology in this really good acreage. It's a standalone well. And you can see this is real data. The blue dots is a really great well. And we used that as our baseline. And then wells 1, 3, and 5 were completed using Shear Frac technology. Again, part of a 5-well pad with an A's in between, but we're just looking at the B's here. And the well 5, you can see just offset 3 west, which was completed pre-Shear Frac. So remember, 1,500 feet away from a parent well, we've seen that it can reduce EUR by 20%. And so here's kind of what you see, that green well over there is reduced compared to the optimally stimulated red well. And the brown well, because it's in between, perhaps these wells were too tightly spaced with the Wolfcamp days as well. So it's actually producing less than that well near the parent well. That early data can be misleading, and that's why we really like to highlight this one. This is a long-term data set. It's been over a year now. You can see this is a log plot, and so you can see the advantage of maximizing fracture surface area per volume of fluid pumped. So when you're on this pad well, you can see that each of these pad wells produces a negative half slope for much longer than that standalone well did. It's gone to a one slope production now, much earlier time. So you get that long-term production, you get that long-term value. So that's really it. It's a cost-effective technology. I'll just refer back to my original statement. Completion design drives production. The idea of using the same design for every single stage now is no longer possible. We have to be agile in our approach. So if your completion design uses real-time changes to maximize shear fractures per barrel, maximize fracture surface area, then you can maximize EUR, you can maximize production. So only by measuring fractures on every stage can informed improvements be made to make every stage and every well the best it can possibly be. Real-time changes can significantly increase production. So thank you very much for listening. I look very much forward to any questions that you have about this technology. Thank you very much.
With that, I'm going to thank Tom for an excellent presentation. And with that, moving on to our next speaker, it is Orkan Mukhtarli, also known as Mark Mukhtarli. He is the founder of Revsolz. He's the president, and he's got close to 15 years of diversified international industry experience. He got his master's from the University of Louisiana in petroleum engineering, and he started his career as a reservoir and production engineer at BP in Azerbaijan. In 2018, Mark moved to Canada, and he joined the Abra Controls team, where he worked to understand, plan, and mitigate wellbore communication phenomena. You remember you may have heard of the Anidex software. That's Mark. So currently, Mark is the president of Revsolz, a team developing a unique completion software package, which acquires, monitors, analyzes, and generates diagnostic plots to identify and categorize fracture-driven interactions, FDIs. With that, Darcy, can you please launch Mark's presentation?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this amazing webinar provided by our friends, SAGA Wisdom, and creating opportunity for us to share game-changing technologies with you. I am Mark Mukhtarli, president of Revsolz Corp, and today I would like to talk about how we bring monitoring and analytics solutions to the completion and production groups for optimum frac optimization or management. A little about myself. I have close to 15 years of diversified international experience with companies like BP and Stone Energy, gained extensive experience in multiple regions like Caspian Sea, North Sea, Gulf of Mexico, Appalachian, and the Western Canadian sedimentary basins. A little bit about Revsolz Corp itself. Revsolz was founded in 2020 to bring most comprehensive and unique frac solutions with surface monitoring analytics, supplying all the smart monitoring devices for data acquisition and very modern, interactive, and AI ML infused cloud-based software to the oil field. A little bit about our platform itself. So the Fraxel platform is the proprietary software of Revsolz. It's the IoT platform where we're providing the devices, hardware, and the software itself. Fraxel consists of the 4 modules. So the Fraxel TWM stands for the treatment well monitoring, which is going to be, we are going to provide our device. It's going to be connected to the data van, and all the data that is coming from data van is going to be captured by our device, send it to our secure cloud, from where everything is going to be streamed to the visualization interface, from where you can log in with your user credentials and visualize and interact and check the KPIs of your frac data, frac parameters. Fraxel OWM is the second module, which is the offset well monitoring, stands for offset well monitoring, and we're providing our high resolution and accurate pressure sensors for your wells, casing, and tubing for treatment and offset wells, which again, everything transmitted to our cloud from where you are again will be able to see with our visualization or interface and set your alarms and receive notifications. FTI stands for the fracture driven interactions, which is captures all the frac hits, frac bashings, frac shadows, prolastic effects under the one umbrella, which is going to be FTI. Our smart algorithms creates the automated real-time diagnostics where we are identifying, classifying, capturing, highlighting all those FTI events, putting into the charts, maps, tables for further analysis. Fraxel Ml is the machine learning part of it, and is going to be independent module where you can forecast and have a predictive tool where potential FTS can be highlighted before the job or the real time, and the production impairment analysis is going to be also captured in this module. Even though that all our modules have the ML infusion, but the Fraxel ML is going to be separate than the other ones. So now we can go and deep dive to each module in a demo section. So once you log into our system, you're going to have a profile section on the right hand side. On the left hand side, you're going to see the modules TWM, OWM, FTI, ML. So right now we are in the TWM section where we have selected, and you're going to be able to also see the module that you are in right on the top. On the left hand side, you are going to be able to see the active jobs, archive jobs sorted by years, and the jobs that or the paths that is in your interest. The TWM section consists of 4 different tabs. So the overview section, where you're going to be able to see your wells, some basic information about the wells, the Gantt chart, and well configurations, where you can have some overview about your wells. The next tab is about the stage view, and the stage view is pretty much the wells that you have been selected from the top is gonna populate in the bottom based on the frac parameters that have been selected on the left hand side. And the frac parameters, all you gotta do is just turn it on and off, and they're gonna pop up into the main screen. And all you gotta do is just scroll down and see all your frac parameters and overlay of your stages and wells. And the stages and wells have been can be selected from the sidebar. Once you select the wells from the top, in the sidebar, you are gonna do the stages. You can add as much stages you want into the charts, and they're gonna populate all the data. So going for the frac view is a different way of looking at your frac data. So the stage view was based on the frac parameter, and you're overlaying the wells and stages, where the frac view is based on the well and you're overlaying frac parameters. And let's go for the 24 hours. In the 24 hours, so let's look at this well number 2. Let's actually make it 12, and you can interact with your data as much as you want and overlay the frac parameters which have been selected from the frac parameter list. And here the view has been changed a little bit for this tab, where you can select the left axis or right axis based on the parameter that is in your interest. And once you select it, you can actually shift back and forth and add more data into your analysis and visualization. The last one is the Kpi section. KPIs are more of a capturing of your non-productive times and general stats for the slurries, cleans, and propant for the actuals versus designs. All you gotta do is just click, from one ring to another ring, and it's gonna populate right in the charts and the graphics. Non-productive times, similarly, is gonna be captured, and lastly is gonna be the general stats, where you're gonna see your pump efficiencies and stage statuses. So let's go for the offset OWM. Fraxel OWM is capturing all the offset well data or the well pressure data. in our system, and the same concept of the well list section is going to pop up on the top, and you're going to be able to select the wells that you would like to see on the charts. And the chart section, you can select the wells that is in your interest, either from the right hand side or from the well list itself. And right in the bottom, you're going to be able to see the well configurations and well trajectories, and you can actually click on well by well and see the wellheads in more closer look. And you can do a lot of trend lines, putting annotations on the well, on each wells, and you can split the chart into 2 or 3 more charts where you can drag and drop wells from one chart to another chart for better visualization. You can also set the alarms based on the thresholds, slopes, where as soon as the alarms are being triggered, you're going to receive the notifications and the emails from where you can do some actions based on this. So let's go to FDI. So once you analyze your TWM and OWM, let's go for the FDI. So right now we are in Fraxel FDI. We have selected Fraxel FDI, and you're going to be able to see several tabs right in the top, and you need to walk through each section until you get to the stats section. So the main key plot section is going to have treatment wells on the top, and you can select either all treatment wells or some of them. And you are going to have the offsetting wells. You can select which offsetting wells you would like to display on the second chart. And as soon as you select the wells, you select all the wells, treatment wells, we do see some events have been highlighted and extracted for further analysis. You can select each event and deep dive more about the event itself, but we're not going to go do that right now. We're going to just go for the overview of it. So the main parameters are going to be captured with our smart algorithms, which is going to be the intensities, magnitudes, the volume to first responses, and obviously the interaction of those wells between this offsetting well. And the next section is going to be production analysis. Automatically it's going to be captured, analyzed based on these interactions. And later, all these events that have been highlighted, you would like to have some more insights about it, and you would like to see how they are building reference to each other, and you can normalize and see better differences between each event within the same well. Summary section is going to capture all the rest information about the slopes, the FDI start and end pressures, the ISIPs, and everything is going to be populated into the tables, which you can export to another softwares if you wish so. Stat section is going to summarize all your assets information about, how many FDIs have been identified, but they're not, events have been identified, but they're not FDIs, how many frac shadows, how many frac to frac communications you have, and you are going to see the relationship between the FDIs versus intensities, magnitudes of your assets, production impairment, 6 months, 12 months, lifespan, and then the completion type versus production impairments, and of course the bubble charts, bubble maps, which is going to give you more information about which area is highly affected with the FDIs. With this, you are going to get your assets done in terms of the analytics, and we're going to stop it right here. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stop my presentation. Thank you very much for joining. I wish you all the best and wonderful. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Bye.
Well, thanks so much, Mark. I don't see any more questions coming in. With that, I'm going to transition into our next speaker. And we're moving on to Interface Fluidics. The title of this is Rapid and Repeatable Frac Fluid Optimization. The presenter is Ali Abedini, the Executive VP of Technical Operations at Interface. Dr. Abedini leads technical execution, operational strategy, formulation, project management, product development, and commercialization at Interface. He's authored more than 60 journal articles and conference papers, furthering the development of the field of nanofluidics for the energy industry. He's also an active technical reviewer and editorial board member for numerous esteemed journals and national and provincial research grants. Ali holds a PhD in petroleum systems engineering from the University of Regina and a master's in reservoir engineering. With that, Darcy, cue the presentation, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ali Abdini from Interface Fluidics. First of all, I'd like to thank the SAGA Wisdom for setting up this webinar. Today, I'm going to give a talk about rapid and repeatable fracturing fluid optimization. A bit on the company profile. Interface Fluidics is a technology company that provides unique insights into the interactions and properties of the reservoir fluids with an ultimate goal to improve the operational efficiencies and enable better long-term decisions by providing ready, fast, and accessible data. Our operation is up in Edmonton. Our lab is located in basically at the National Institute of Nanotechnology, and our business headquarters is located in Calgary. In terms of the operations, we work with different operators all around the world. Obviously, we have a big track of record of working in North America, including Canada and United States. We also work on EOR and gas injection processes at Middle East and Norway. And recently, we have been increasing and expanding our work into Southern America. In terms of solution and products, we have two different streamlines, flow-through porous media, which we are looking at the interaction of the fluids for different purposes, for frac fluid optimization, enhanced oil recovery, and thermal processes, majorly including SAGD and SAGD additives. We also provide a lot of measurements for PVT and phase behavior analysis. Most importantly, we provide fast turnaround measurements of MMP and MME. We do wax and asphaltenes, diffusivity, and more. Interface uses a technology which is called Microfluidics. Fundamentally, microfluidics is the study of the fluid behavior at the micro scale, which is relevant to the porous scale of the hydrocarbon reservoirs. What we do, we generate analogs that replicate the porous structures and geometries of the rock, and then we look at the fluid interactions and basically the fluid movement through these porous spaces using our optical tools. Specifically on the fracturing fluid optimization, I think everyone in this webinar knows what frac process or frac job is. So the idea is to improve the permeability near the wellbore in unconventionals and tight formations by creating and inducing fractures through injecting the frac fluid at very high pressures. What we do at Interface, we design an analog that somehow replicates the connectivity of the fracture into the matrix. So the top right photo here shows a snapshot and zoom in of our analog. So here you literally see two different media. The first one is this triangle shape high porous media, which replicates the frac zone, and then we have this area which comprises of these small nano throats and isolated pores. So this area simulates the matrix. So in terms of the permeability and porosity, there is a huge contrast here. The frac zone has a Darcy range perm with over 30-40% porosity, but this area is sub 10% porosity with nano to micro Darcy permeability range. How we run our experiment testing. So prior to start the injection, we modify the wettability of these substrates, whether it's intermediate wet, water wet, or oil wet. And then we saturate the analog with formation brine and oil. And then it's the time to start the injection. First, we inject the frac fluid. It could be slick water or any frac fluid additives included. And with this, we inject it from frac zone into the matrix. So in this picture from top to bottom. And we displace oil. out, and through that we can measure the displacement efficiency, how much of the oil has been cleaned by injecting the surfactant, by injecting the frac fluid, which can have a lot of additives into such as surfactant. And then after displacement is done, we apply soak period, and then we inject oil from matrix into the frac. So in this picture, from bottom to top, and then we look at how much regain saturation we get, and also we quantify the volume of the oil is passing through the system. In terms of the advantages, we can run these experiments at relevant pressure and temperature to reservoirs. They are actually run at true nano confinement, relevant to the confinement level of the unconventional reservoirs. They're significantly fast and compared to the conventional testing out in the market. We use very little amount of fluid sample, and it's very scalable. And the interesting point here is the results you get today, you can compare them against in the future. If you want, you can come in and just recall your specific analog, and we do the test, and again you can compare the results against any test results you've got with this platform. In terms of the performance measurement, so our primary metric is the volume of the oil flowing back during the oil flow back step. So we measure the amount of the volume through our basically optical tools. It's very accurate. The range of the accuracy we're dealing here is in the range of picoliters. In addition to the volume of the oil, we can also provide more let's say flow dynamics measurement, including the displacement efficiency during the frac injection, regain saturation, and finally we can provide information on the wettability modification of the substrate as a function of, let's say, if you guys use surfactants. How process works here. So we have 4 different steps. The first step is the design of the reservoir analog. What we require to do that, we need some information about the rock properties or basically some statistical analysis. We require pore throat size distribution, which is very critical and important. We also require porosity, permeability, and the initial wettability of the rock. That can help us to prep the analog. Some other information such as SCM images, thin section, they're also very helpful in case of if you want to basically design the morphology of the grains and pores. Next step is in-house analog fabrication. So everything is done in-house at interface, and we basically design analogs and then fabricate them on the silicon substrate. Next step, we use the reservoir fluids, including brine, water, brine, and oil, to do our testing. And finally, we use our in-house developed image analysis algorithm to quantify the images and convert them into data that can show basically performances of different cases and processes. In terms of the operating conditions, especially on the flowback side, we can go up to 20 MPa, 3500 psi, and up to 150 degrees of centigrade, which is equivalent to 300 Fahrenheit. Here is the sample video of frac injection and the oil flowback. The top is injection, the bottom is oil flowback. Just for your reference, any bright pixel or bright color you see here is oil, because we use the fluorescent microscopy to distinguish the oil phase from the other phases. So on top video, we inject the frac fluid from left to right. As you can see, the frac fluid comes in, it displaces the oil inside the frac and later on the matrix. So here you can quantify the displacement efficiency. One thing to notify, so the speed of the video that you see here is 100 times faster than the actual speed of the experiment, just for the sake of time. Next step is the oil flowback. So we inject oil from matrix into the frac. So as you can see here, the oil comes in, resaturate and refill the pores, and later on the frac zone. And you can quantify again the saturation of the oil, the regain saturation, and we also measure the volume of the oil that passes through this analog. This video here, so basically what we did, we work with an operator down in Houston, Texas, Primex Energy Partners. In that work, we screened through 7 different surfactants and compared the performance against a control case, which was literally the brine with no additive, with no surfactant. So here, the bottom video shows the oil coming into the system, and the graph here depicts the live video of the volume of the oil as quantified versus time. So as you can see, the oil comes in for different cases, and then the equivalent volume is plotted in this graph versus time. So as you can see, there's different behaviors here depending on different chemistries, and this table here shows the final or the overall volume of the oil flowing back at same pressure differential for all cases. So again, the operational conditions is the same for everything, and then the improvement factor over the control. So it means that how much improvement in the oil flow back you get from different cases. This table and the graphics here, it shows the final volume and the improvement factor over the control. So as you can see, sample P4, it produced a maximum amount of the oil and over 300% improvement, and you see the basically the ranking for different cases. We used the Wolfcam analog here, which was 85 nanometers pore throat size, around 5.5% porosity, and around 900 nanodarcy permeability. And the next step of this work was we tested all of these additives at 2 different loadings, 0.5 and 1.5 GPT. So we basically triplicated the dosage just to see the impact of the surfactant concentration on the oil flow back. So it was quite interesting because overall we found the performance or the improvement of the flow back as a function of increasing concentration. So generally speaking, the performance went up, but sample P4, which we found was the best for both cases, both 0.5 and 1.5 GPT, it produced the most at lower concentration. So at half GPT, it was around 90 nanoliters of the oil volume. Once we lowered the concentration to 1.5 GPT, sorry, once we increased it to 1.5 GPT, it went around 75. So again, it shows that there should be a sweet spot for surfactant concentration when it comes to the flow back efficiency. Again, everything ran at 150 degrees of Fahrenheit and 3300 PSI, and this is a ranking of different surfactants. So what Primex did, so they used this information and to complete a new well. So they used sample P4 at 0.5 GPT, which based on this testing showed to be the optimum case. And then they compared the results with the production data of a sister well, which was completed with one of these. I guess it was P1, sample P1 at 1.5 GPT. So what they did, they changed the surfactant, or they changed the chemistry, and also they lowered the dosage to 1/3 of what they already applied in the completion of the another well. And the results again was quite interesting because, as you can see here, so the blue color is the new well, and the gray color is a sister well, is the old well. And as you can see, over the 6 months of the production data, as we got over 10,000 barrels of extra oil. Again, we are not claiming all the success here, but what Primex achieved was they reduced the chemical cost by over 50%, majorly because they actually lowered the concentration to 1/3 of what they did in the previous completion work. The other thing was quite good. Was actually the initial peak of the production. So the initial peak for the new well happened around 20 to 25 days, while for the other well it happened around 40 days. So again, in terms of the overall productivity of the well, we found improvement plus a significant cost saving on chemical usage. The other thing that I really want to touch on quickly, so we developed a new product that we call the Regain Conductivity. So it's a complementary test to our current frac fluid optimization. And what we do here, we look at the formation, or let's say the frac damage caused by different friction reducers. So what we do, we design an analog that replicate just the frac zone, in terms of the porosity and permeability. And we, all the advantages that we had previously apply here. Very repeatable, much faster, significant reduction in the cost, and scalable, little amount of volume, and all here. And then we can test different friction reducers or polymers, or let's say HVFRs, and look at how much damage we get. So here, as an example, we tested 8 different friction reducers, and here we sorted out the damage factor from low damage to high damage, and you can see how much damage factor we get as a function of different friction reducers. And if you look at the error bands, they're extremely tight, so they're very repeatable and reproducible. So that can be a really good complementary testing to our frac optimization testing. In the end, I like to wrap up my talk with some conclusions. So first of all, interface frac flowback testing, or in general the microfluidics technology that we provide into the market, they enable to optimize the frac fluid through better data-driven decisions. Obviously, we can prevent overcapitalization on the wells. We can mitigate the fluid damages caused by different additives, such as surfactants, friction reducers, breakers, etc., during the completion work. And the ultimate goal is to improve the oil recovery, the well productivity, and chemical performance. Thank you so much for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation today. That was excellent. Again, everybody, handout section for rich reference materials, marketing brochures, and contact information. With that, we have 2 more speakers to get through, so we're right on schedule. The next one's my good buddy, Daryl Tompkins from Revo Testing Technologies. He's the founder and CTO. Daryl has spent his career working in reservoir completions and operations engineering in mature fields, gas storage, and unconventionals. He spent a lot of time with the Spider team in Halliburton. A lot of you will recognize him from that. He's currently the CTO of Revo Testing, and he's based in Houston, and he works on developing technologies for unconventional well performance evaluations and production optimization. What he's really passionate about right now is optimizing choke strategies, which you're going to hear about. And he's a registered PEng in the province of Ontario, of all provinces, not exactly known as the Big Energy Province, but that's where I'm from. I'm from Kingston, if anybody cares. And he holds a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the University of Windsor, Canada, home of Bob Probert, for all of your hockey fans out there who are old like me. Okay, so with that, Darcy, hit it.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about Revo Testing Technologies' new rapid tool that can be used inside the Revo Iq software. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction on Revo Testing Technologies, this is the first fully integrated digital flow testing company that drives well performance by leveraging the best-in-class equipment combined with unique reservoir analytics. We have our headquarters in Houston, Texas, and field offices in Pleasanton and Monahans, Texas, and we offer 3 services as part of our Flow Smart solution set. There's our automated flow testing with our advanced flow testing equipment. We've got our Revo IQ software, and we offer reservoir engineering consultancy. So what we found was there was a lot of flowback data that was being collected, but nobody was really using any of it for anything beneficial. So what we thought is we could get the best data possible, supply that to our customers so they could make decisions during the early well's life that could maximize its performance. And we do that with the FlowSmart solutions. Just real quickly, this is our equipment. It is 100% electrically controlled, which eliminates all methane emissions. We use pneumatic controls. It's got an automated control system to reduce HSE risk, and we've got real-time data on demand, which gives visibility and control of production optimization. Now, jumping right into the Revo IQ software. All data from all the sensors that we have on location that's being collected at any moment in time, we have going directly into your mobile devices or your desktop, so that way you can have complete operational oversight and transparency of your production operation. Here is what the Revo IQ main dashboard looks like. You've got a couple key performance indicator gauges up here, your drawdown, a couple other key performance indicators on rates. We've got the primary plots that we like to look at, our production history with the rapid color histograms up at the top that we're going to talk more about in a second. We've got our production ratio plot, separator data, and our drawdown. This quadrant actually here in the bottom right hand corner, we can select rate normalized pressure plots, drawdown per day, drawdown versus cumulative. This is our main performance diagnostic plot down in the right hand side here. So the first thing that we want to do when we're working on flowbacks or production to optimize drawdown or optimize the production is we want to make sure that we have really good quality data. When we're analyzing flowbacks, this is particularly important because flowbacks don't last long, and it's very difficult to see trends in the data when the data is very noisy. And you can see that here. This is an Eagle Ford example where initially we're flowing to tanks. The data is quite noisy. Then we turn through the Revo system, and you can see it actually gets really clean here. We've got nice clean data, and then we turn through facilities and it gets really noisy again. Well, we can use our production ratio plot to QA/QC these rate measurements, and I'll show you how we do that with ours. So first of all, what we do is we plot bottom hole pressure, gas oil ratio, separator back pressure, gas water ratio, and our water oil ratio and choke all on the same plot. Now the reason we do that is your bottom hole pressure can affect your production ratios, and your separator back pressure can affect your production ratios. So what we want to do is make sure that neither one of those are affecting it, so we can tell if it's actually a reservoir related phenomenon or a surface measurement related phenomenon. So what we can see here is when we were flowing through the Revo automated testing system, generally speaking, you've got a nice flat GOR here, and that's what you should expect. If you're producing at a bottom hole flowing pressure that is higher than your saturation pressure, the hydrocarbons entering the wellbore are monophasic. It's a single phase. They separate as they come up the wellbore. So that ratio should be nearly constant if you're not changing your separator back pressure too much and your bottom hole flowing pressure hasn't dropped below your saturation pressure. Now, if they get really noisy, like we can see here with our GOR, that's an indication of rate measurement error. A couple other things we like to look at on this plot is the diverging trend between gas water and water oil ratio. That's indicative of how the well's cleaning up. But mostly we're looking at it for noise that's indicative of rate measurement errors. Now, what this turns into on the linear flow diagnostic plot is a bunch of lines that are hard to analyze. So you can see on this one, right in the beginning, we've got what looks like a linear trend here that I've matched a red line to. However, that linear trend is not indicative of the reservoir response. This is from data noise and choke change frequency. We know that because when we turn through the separator, we get different slopes to the data, and it's a lot cleaner, and those slopes actually change with each choke change. This is what we expect to see when we're opening up the chokes on a flowback. And this is going to, on a linear flow diagnostic plot, what this implies is that your A/K parameter is actually changing as you're flowing back the well. Now finally, the bit of data on the end here that's really noisy, I tell you, I'm guilty of this. You get a cloud of data here and you just kind of match a line through it as best you can. Well, the problem with that is 5 engineers will all get something different. And if you're iterating your completion design on the order of 5 to 10% changes in proppant per foot, cluster spacing, anything like that, it's going to be really difficult to distinguish any type of benefit when all your engineers are coming up with slightly different answers. So we need to have really good quality data to be able to do drawdown optimization and assess the completion design. Now let's jump right into Rapid. So traditional RTA methods are not really well suited for flowback analysis. Revo uses a unique diagnostic analysis workflow combined with our proprietary software to optimize the performance during flowback. Now, our newest feature, Rapid, which is our Revo Automated Performance Diagnostic, automatically analyzes well performance every hour and provides real-time feedback on choke recommendations via the Revo IQ gauges, which are these gauges up here at the top that you can see on the main dashboard of the Revo IQ platform. Also, this continuously will monitor well performance, and when you do that, you can efficiently produce the well. And you can see basically what we've got here is down at the bottom, you can see the model line that's being fit to the data. Well, what Rapid does is it fits it every hour and it compares the differences in the model outputs. So if your skin is changing, or if your fracture half-length is changing, or if your permeability is changing, the magnitude of that change we reflect in these color bars right here. So if there's an increase, let's say, in your fracture half-length, it's going to show up as green in here. If it stays the same, it's going to be yellowish, greenish. If it's decreasing, it's going to be red. So this all goes through how we validated Revo, the Rapid utility. And what we did is we first set up numerical models. So what you're seeing here is a numerical test cell that we use to generate production data. So what you can see down in the bottom left-hand side here is just the production data that has been generated from this numerical model. Decreases in well performance are then applied to this data to see if we can pick that up in Rapid and another utility we have called Apex. So this is that numerically simulated data. Now there's no damage in it right now, so Rapid just looks green the whole time because performance is either the same or slightly increasing. So that's a good sign. Now let's have a look at something where the performance is decreasing a little. First, actually, sorry, so this is an example where we had really good data. This was our testing equipment out there, and you can see the data looks really clean and Rapid. There's a couple spots where it goes red, but for the most part it's green all the way through. These spots right here where it goes red is actually a tiny bit of wellbore storage dissipation, but after that it goes green again. When it's green, you can continue to increase your choke. So everything looks good here. Great. Is actually, it's not. So it's all yellow. It's indicating that there is a problem here. Your well is not producing what it's supposed to. Now, the reason I simulated it this way is because we had a real world example that was very similar to this. So we wanted to be kind of comparing apples to apples through the validation process that we ran through Rapid, right? And Rapid picked it up. Rapid picks up the decrease in performance right here, and then it shows that the rest of it, the performance never comes back. Difficult to see in a linear flow diagnostic plot, especially early on when the data quality is not that great. So you want to make sure that you have really good data quality going into this so that way you can optimize your drawdown effectively. So some conclusions. The Rapid was verified using the numerical models with and without damage. It picked up on the damage and it was able to see the ones that didn't have any damage were just green the whole time. And we've tested this on wells in every major basin. We've actually run a bunch of different numerical models testing it It's a very robust solution and been working very well for us. And like I said, we've validated that in just about every major US basin at this point. Revo IQ with rapid capability is available for production optimization today. This doesn't have to be a flowback solution. This is a long-term production solution. The Revo IQ software can be your preferred production visualization and diagnostic software. Some of the stuff that we're adding in right now is advanced analytical modeling capability, where you'll be able to do the diagnostic analysis inside Revo IQ as well. And we are looking to trial Rapid with auto chokes and ESPs. So that way you can just hook the system to an auto choke, and instead of you even having to do anything, it just drives the well on its own. It will just send you a text and let you know that it's recommending to increase a choke. You can acknowledge it, and the system will increase a choke on its own. Additionally, you can do this with artificial lift systems. In the case of an ESP, instead of increasing choke size, it just increases the ESP frequency. So if there's any opportunity to be able to try this with either artificial lift systems or auto choke systems, we would be happy to have that discussion to implement that for any customer that's interested. And that's all I have for you today. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now. I would just like to thank SAGA Wisdom for inviting us here today. It's been a great opportunity, and I'll open it up to questions.
All right. Thank you, Daryl. And you are very welcome, sir. Our last presenter is Brett Golden. He is the Director of Marketing and BD at WINS, and WINS is Wireless Instrumentation Systems. That's the long version. Brett joined Wireless Instrumentation Systems in March of 2020. As the Director of Marketing and BD, he's got a bachelor's from Texas A&M. He's an Aggie with 38 years of experience in the development of drilling and completions products. He spent the last 10 years with Saudi Aramco upstream research, and he's led many innovative production technology developments. He's also the founder and chief architect at Well Dynamics. He started his career at Baker, developing completions products, and Brett's published numerous scientific articles and papers, and is an inventor in 49 granted patents. He's also got a big presence in the Middle East, and a lot of his customers over there on that side of the world. So we're going to have to maybe do something like this for the other side of the globe at a better hour. But with that, let's launch Brett's presentation. Darcy.
Hello, my name is Brett Bolden, and I'm the marketing director for WINS, which stands for Wireless Instrumentation Systems. Today I'm going to be talking about WIMO, our wireless monitoring downhole gauge. And what is WIMO? It's the world's first practical wireless production monitoring system. The reason I say this is because it measures not only pressure and temperature, but also flow rate, and it does it with no repeaters because of its novel telemetry. It also has a solar-powered surface system, so we can easily bring that information from the surface to your smart devices or into your operator database system. So how does the telemetry work on WIMO? It's a pressure pulse telemetry. We start with flow coming from the reservoir, which comes through a turbine, which turns a generator, which powers up electronics. And so we can then pulse width modulate a load to ground, which backwards puts load on a generator, which puts resistance on a turbine, which creates pressure pulses, which propagate up the tubing string. And those pressure pulses can be read at the surface with a high-speed pressure transducer. So it's a very innovative type of pressure pulse telemetry, but it's still based on the same basis as mud pulse telemetry and drilling. Okay, so the applications you would use this in primarily are in permanent downhole gauge replacements or in multi-zone horizontal systems, whether it be injection or completion production capabilities. And as the produced fluid goes through the WIMO tool, it propagates communication to the surface. Or in these horizontal applications, these are not repeaters. These are multiple inflow devices. If you want to know what the flow rates are at different places in your multi-zone well, then several WIMO tools in the well would be able to tell you that. Here's our surface communication system. It's a small footprint. It's solar powered. It's IEC Zone 1 certified, and it uses cellular telemetry to securely get your data to your desktop devices or into your operator's database. And we also have a dashboard system so that you can visualize the data, or if you have your own system, we'll load the data into that system as well. Here's how we hang the WEMO system in the wellbore. We can set it to a nipple with a lock configuration. This is an Otis X, or could use a Baker Sure set. And we adapt that to the WEMO tool, and we can slick line this into place and lock it in place. Or if you don't have a nipple, we can use a nippleless style, which will be a Halliburton Evo Treve or a Baker Hughes NPR plug. Adapter to that, run this in the hold-on electric line, set it. As long as the flow goes through the inlet and out the outlet, all the flow, then you get an accurate flow rate measurement as well. So here's what the electronics module of the WEMO tool looks like. Notice that this is the main electronics board on top, and it has two more boards on the other side. And you'll see the copper and aluminum chassis and components. This is all for thermal dissipation, because these pulse width modulated switches, there's 10 of them here, all generate heat. And so you have to distribute that heat to the wellbore. What's very interesting is that most gauges that are long-term application use a very long battery pack, maybe 20, 25 feet long. But WEMO substitutes this 1 foot long thermal management system for a 20 to 25 foot long battery pack. Quite counterintuitive as to how the thing would work. And here's a cross-sectional picture of the design. Here's the turbine, which turns as the fluid flow goes past it. These are the inlet ports here and the outlet ports. This is the generator. These on the spindle right here are permanent magnets, which are welded in place. This is the wet side of the tool. On the dry side of the tool is the windings for the generator, the bulkhead, the electronics. Here's the bottom sub that seals it all up. We have a pressure feed through that can be used for programming and for downloading. This is the pressure and temperature transducer. There are some very small backup batteries which allow you to record pressure and temperature when you're shut in and not generating power by the turbine. And so that's how the system works. It's all electron beam welded construction. It's made out of Inconel 718 for extreme corrosion resistance. And it's a very compact size, only about 30 inches long. Here's a picture of the tool being held by a person. It's very small, only 30 inches long. Here's a picture of the surface system, all decorated up for Christmas. Doesn't that look nice? So what is the big deal about WEMO? The wireless capability enables you to use it in existing wells. You can replace failed PDGs, permanent downhole gauges, and you get longer-term monitoring compared to memory gauges. So it really fills a gap between permanent downhole gauges, which have to be installed at completion and can fail, versus memory gauges, which are relatively short-term, and you don't even know if you're recording the data accurately or not. So downhole flow rate measurement enables more accurate pressure transient analysis without shut-in. Only drawdowns needed. That's a big deal. You can do PTA, better PTA without shut-in. That's a big deal. Future versions of the WEMO tool will also include water cut, but that capability is not even needed to understand all the trends for PTA, and I have some papers about that I can share. So what is needed? All we need are more field trials and a test with PTA where we're measuring both surface and downhole rates so we can compare the analysis in the two scenarios. So downhole pressure and downhole flow rate will become the preferred way to perform pressure transient analysis and rate transient analysis in the future. So the big deal about WEMO is that downhole flow rate gives you more accurate PTA analysis, better reservoir characterization without shutting in the well. Only drawdowns are needed. And that's the end of my presentation. Just remember, in order to become truly digital, you need live well data. And downhole flow rate makes all the difference as far as PTA is concerned. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next Friday.